Christophe the Peddler Cat by Jin Fujisawa. In the middle of England, there is a town called Leicester. In that town lives a boy named Edward. He was born with a disabled leg and has used a wheelchair to move his whole life. His daily pleasure is watching live soccer on TV. The day the local team won, he was happy for the rest of the day. But Edward did not like to go outside. His entire world only extended as far as the pond at the back of the garden where he lived. "Look, Edward, the breeze feels so nice today. Would you like to go for a walk in the park? If you're feeling up to it, I can get us tickets to Leicester City." Whenever his mother asked him to go out, Edward would always reply, "That would be nice, but I don't think it's the right time yet." Edward liked to gaze out of the window. One day, Edward was gazing out of the window as usual and saw a black cat nearby. "Where are you going?" The black cat wandered around a bit as Edward spoke to it from behind. "I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking of leaving this town." Edward widened his eyes with surprise. The black cat turned around nervously and made a face to match the next words he spoke. "Oh dear, I spoke by accident." From that day on, the talking black cat lived in Edward's house. Edward gave the black cat a name, Christophe. At night, Christophe told Edward many stories. He talked about the people he saw from the rooftops. Women eating fries and planning their diets. An old man complaining of feeling unwell, but that he couldn't go to see a doctor. All of these stories were entertaining to Edward, who did not know anything about the outside world. They somehow became best friends. "Ed, don't you ever wish you could go outside?" "I do, every day." "Then why not give it a try? Let's go to the market tomorrow morning." "Well, I really like the idea, but I don't think it's the right time yet." One evening, a year after they had been living together, Christophe told him a secret. He told him that talking cats like Christophe are actually the agents of witches. They are called familiars, and there are many of them around the world. Humans like Edward, who know about familiars, are called buddies. But there are not so many buddies in the world. Everyone is very careful not to let people know about this. Christophe continued. "Now comes the important part. After 3 years in the human world, we are supposed to return to the home of our witch." Edward was shocked. "That means you're going back home too?" Christophe nodded. "I met you a year ago, and had already been in this world for a year before that. So I only have 1 year left. Please don't go. I really want you to stay with me. I know, I feel the same way. Is there any way we can be together forever? There is, but it's the only way. Our job as familiars is to report to our witches what we see on Earth. So, we get a reward if we report about a certain number of countries. That reward is the right to live on Earth forever. That's our deal with the witches. 3 continents, 30 countries, and 30,000 kilometers of travel. Christophe explained to him, pointing to a globe. In other words, almost a round-the-world trip. If I were to complete that journey and return to you, I would be free. The next morning, Christophe told Edward, 1 year is hardly enough time to travel around the world. I must leave now. Are you sure you will come back? Of course I will. I'll send you a letter. We familiars have a knack for written communication. Christophe set off on his journey. As he left, he turned his head to look back many times. A week later, Edward received the first letter from Christophe. Bonjour, Ed. I crossed the Straits of Dover during the night and I am already in France. I stopped in Paris, but it was very noisy. People in this city have a history of fighting against unfairness. Maybe that is what makes it so lively here. I decided to grab an eclair and leave right away. Hola, Ed. I passed through Spain and entered Portugal this morning. All the fish here are excellent, especially the grilled sardines. I am going to look for a boat in the harbour to cross the North Atlantic, and then I will sail to North America. I feel like a 15th century conquistador. Sometimes cats need money for their travels. They peddle the treasures they find on their journey. Ancient coins, valuable medicinal herbs, and incense from sandy beaches. Buddies from all over the world are willing to buy them. Christophe spends the money he earns in this way to eat delicious food. In Canada, he had pancakes covered with maple syrup. In Alaska, he had a full plate of their famous baked salmon. Christophe crossed the Bering Strait by connecting boat rides. Then he went back to Eurasia. Taking an extra detour through Russia, he also stopped in Japan. Konnichiwa, Ed. Today I arrived in Japan, a place I have always wanted to visit. I fought a very big sumo wrestler. I was a bit nervous, but I won the fight with my quick moves. From North and South Korea to China, Laos and Thailand, through Myanmar, Bangladesh, India and Pakistan, Iran, Iraq and Jordan, and the 21st country, Israel. Christophe had finally entered his third continent. Africa. He heard a familiar voice while running through Egypt. Shade, are you sure you want to travel around the world? The witch Mist appeared out of the fog. She is Christophe's master. Yes, I've decided to live with Edward. Living with humans is boring. Don't do it. I choose how I live. Christophe shook off Mist and kept running. Salam, Ed. I am making my way along the South Mediterranean and have made it to the city of Cairo. As soon as the sun sets, a festival will start here. The food at the stalls is all excellent, but it is so noisy that I cannot help but feel tired. I ran to the rooftops and caught the gaze of a sphinx with a tired look on his face. Mahaba, Ed. I have been driving through the desert ever since I left Cairo and have just arrived in Libya. While walking through old ruins, I passed a wildcat with its big ears pointed up. We greeted each other and it made me feel nostalgic. A very strange feeling. I wonder who he was. Assalam, Ed. I am in the port town in Tunisia, looking for the best boat. It is time for me to sail through the Mediterranean. I will meet you soon. The thought of it makes me so excited that I have almost forgotten my appetite. Although I was looking forward to having a lot of couscous. Ciao, Ed. I just crossed the strait on a speedboat and landed in Sicily. My vision is still spinning terribly due to being seasick from the trip. Perhaps it was the peach-colored wine that the lady shared with me. In any case, I will wait until I sober up a bit before moving on. Fortunately, the sea breeze on this island feels very nice on my whiskers. At the foot of the Alps, Christophe boarded the mountain railroad. He coughed a little from the train smoke, but the train ride was otherwise comfortable. As the train approached a steep gorge, he heard that voice again. Shade. Deep fog was rolling in, and the train came to a sudden halt in the tunnel. Think again about what you're doing. Deep fog entered the train, and the witch Mist appeared out of it. Mist's entire body was made of fog and had no substance. You haven't forgotten how I came to look like this, have you? I asked the great witch to give you life when you were dying, in exchange for my own body. I remember. I'll never forget what you did for me. And now you're going to abandon me to live on Earth? So, since you gave me this life, you're saying I owe you all of it? Mist was shaking her head from side to side sadly. How dare you? Shade, you're a heartless wretch after all. Mist, I'm not Shade. Edward gave me a new name. I'm Christophe. You're a clever black cat, so You haven't forgotten the deal we made, have you? And yet, you haven't been able to tell your owner about it. I pity you so." Christophe left in silence. "Dear Ed, I have something important to tell you today. I have lied to you about something. This is unforgivable. But please calm your mind and listen." Christophe put down the pen and nuzzled his face into his paw. "If this journey is successful, I can be with you forever. I told you this, and it was not a lie. But there is one condition. In exchange for the right to stay on Earth, I would lose my power as a familiar. I would become a normal cat, unable to talk to you." As Christophe was travelling, he never received a reply. Still, Christophe continued to send letters. "Guten Tag, Ed. I have travelled to Austria and Germany since my last letter. Today I left Holland and entered Belgium. I had a celebratory waffle in a beautiful square called Grand Place. Good news! Belgium is the 30th country on this journey. 3 continents, 30 countries, and 30,000 kilometers of travel. Christophe had fulfilled all the requirements of his deal with the witch. Now, all he had to do was go back to Edward. Edward's house was only 300 kilometers away. He still had 1 week left. He had no doubt that his round-the-world trip would be successful now. That night, the voice echoed through Christophe's head again as he walked. "Leave me alone. Don't be so mean. I have something special to tell you today. Something you'll like." It was the witch mist. "I don't care." "Really? Even if it's about Edward?" Christophe stopped. "It's a miracle. I have acquired the witch's potion. Edward's leg can be healed with this. He could be a soccer player in the future. Is that true? If you want to doubt me, go ahead. But if you want the medicine, you'll have to come back and get it yourself. I've been having trouble with my back recently." Christophe was torn. It would take 3 days to get to the misty world where the witch's house was located. If he headed there now, his round-the-world trip would be a failure. But if he could get the medicine, he could send it to Edward in a parcel. Edward would be able to walk if he did that. He could give Edward a bright future. Christophe thought for a while and turned back the way he had come. It was possible he was being manipulated. He knew that there was a risk he was being tricked. But he was willing to accept it. If there was even a small chance that Edward's leg could be healed, that would be far more valuable than successfully finishing his journey on time. With this in mind, Christophe couldn't help but go to the witch's house. Christophe arrived at the House of Mist in the foggy world. "Mist, I've come for Ed's medicine. Give me the witch's potion as you promised." Mist replied, "Oh, I'm sorry. The medicine evaporated. I left the lid open by accident. There's not a drop of it left." Christophe's whiskers quivered with anger. "It looks like you have no time to go back to your owner, Christophe. Now you have no choice but to live with me. You tricked me. Whatever. How you feel about it is entirely up to you." That night, Christophe wiped away his tears and wrote a letter. "Dear Ed, I have one more thing to apologize to you for. I was foolish enough to believe in a falsehood. I should have known better. My mistake has made it impossible for me to return to you in time. I have thought long and hard about what to do next, and so I have decided to continue my journey. I will try to get as close to you as I possibly can. I will think of you until my last moment on earth. I thank God for giving me the chance to meet you. Edward, I love you." Christophe walked without sleep for the next 3 days. Then came the 365th day since his departure. The last morning had arrived. His body was at its limit from exhaustion. He could barely put one paw in front of the other. He knew this and thought of stopping so many times, but still he kept walking. "It doesn't matter if I die of exhaustion from all this walking. I must keep going," he thought. "I will get as close as I can. Even if it takes me just one step closer to Edward." Crossing the Straits of Dover again, Christophe returned to England. He had 220 kilometers to go to Edward's house. 1 hour left. There was no way he could make it. The moment Christophe thought that, he was crushed by his exhaustion. "I'm sorry, Ed. It looks like this is as far as I go." As his eyes closed, Christophe was engulfed in darkness. "This is the end." As he thought this, his mind was flooded with memories. The day they met, the night they fought, the cherished and precious time when they slept together like brothers. "Ed!" Christophe called out his name and received a voice in response. "Christophe!" Christophe thought he was in heaven and slowly opened his eyes. There was Edward in a wheelchair. "Ed, is it really you?" "Yeah, it's really me." "What are you doing here?" "I've come to pick you up, Christophe." "But this is a long way from your house. Weren't you afraid to come here?" "Yes, I was very scared, but I knew that was why I had to be brave. because I knew it was finally happening, that it was the right time for me to leave. The goal of Christophe's journey was to return to his owner. He did not have to make it as far as Edward's house. Christophe made the round-the-world trip successfully. Ed, now I can stay with you for the rest of my life. But I won't be able to talk to you much longer. It doesn't matter. Even if you can't talk to me, I'll keep talking to you, forever and ever. At that moment, a voice came from above them. It seems Mist has caused you trouble. Please forgive her. She's lonely too. Christophe looked up at the sky and saw the great witch smiling down at him. Christophe, consider this my way of apologizing. I will leave the power of the familiar in your body. Now you can live in peace with Edward. Edward and Christophe looked at each other. The two of them went home together and went on to live happily together forever. The end. Christophe the Peddler Cat. Author Jin Fujisawa. Page design Yasue Sato. Production cooperation Eiko Nishio, Fusaya Ando, Urara Yamada. Translation Chikako Kano. Narration Jerry Medcroft. Story note: 5th anniversary commemorative works.